Welcome to Defiance Daily. I am Defiance co-founder Xander Schultz. I'm flying solo today. My co-founder Miles Taylor is over on Nicole Wallace spreading the word about State of the Swamp, our rebuttal to Trump's State of the Union. I'm also without our beloved producer Mercedes today. So if you see me struggling in any way, send me lots of hearts in the chat. I thrive off them. So appreciate your patience with me as I navigate. We have an amazing show today. We've got two incredible guests. First, we're talking about Susan Collins. She just gave Trump a win on voter suppression. We're going to tell you about what's in the bill and who it's really designed to shut out. Then Trump hosted his board of peace today to decide the future of Gaza. Wait until you hear who was invited and who wasn't, and what it actually costs to get a seat. Represent us, CEO Maria McFarland Sanchez Moreno will be joining us to break it all down. And then finally, people are dying in Trump's detention centers. ICE is calling these homicides, or the medical coroners are calling these homicides. And the administration wants $38 billion to build more of these detention centers. So Worth Rise's founder, Bianca Tylik, follows the money. She's going to come on and help us know what's going on with these detention centers and how we can stop it. This is Defiance Daily, so let's get into these stories. Susan Collins just handed Trump his 50th Senate vote for the Save America Act. We covered it yesterday, but we can go back over it again today. It's important to zero in on this important bill. This is the most sweeping voter suppression bill in a generation, and it's disguised as election security. So let me play a clip for you here.
Susan Collins recently announced her support for the Save America Act. If passed, the bill would create stricter voter ID laws requiring individuals to provide documented proof of citizenship when registering to vote and to show a photo ID before voting. The bill passed the House last Wednesday and now makes its way to the Senate. When asked about her support for the bill, Collins says passing the bill would ensure confidence in election results. Critics of the bill argue it would disenfranchise millions of voters. Collins says showing proof of citizenship should only be required when registering to vote for the first time.
A provision requiring a one-time proof of citizenship when you register to vote, I do not believe is burdensome. If you had to do it every time, I would not support this bill.
Now, as it currently stands, there are not enough votes in the Senate to get the bill past the filibuster rules, which require 60 votes to advance legislation. Some Republicans want to end the filibuster rules to get the measure passed by a simple majority, something Collins says she is not in favor of doing.
Now, as mentioned in the clip, this bill is unlikely to pass as long as the filibuster exists. But it is worth taking a second to talk about what Republicans are showing support for. So the bill demands that you either provide a birth certificate or your passport. There's more than 21 million Americans that can't readily access either of those documents. 69 million American women who change their name after marriage don't have a birth certificate that matches their current legal name. So this would specifically impact all the people that the entire arc of our history as a country has been working to include in the vote. We're talking about young voters, rural voters, voters of color, elderly voters, low-income voters. Everyone who already struggles to get to the ballot box, those people will be impacted by the Save America Act. And making matters worse, the problem it claims to solve is non-citizens voting, which is already illegal and virtually non-existent. It's been proven over and over and over again. So the problem it's really solving, and we all know what the problem it's really solving, Republicans can't win if everyone votes. So they're making sure not everyone can. That's the whole game here. Collins says she won't gut the filibuster to pass the Save America Act. She's kind of trying to have it both ways. She's trying to get Trump a win, but then hide behind the procedure. It's worth noting, by the way, Susan Collins voted against the Voting Rights Act because it was too long. A shorter version voted against that too. She was opposed pro-voting bills, citing states' rights. But this bill is a massive federal takeover of state elections. Her challenger, Graham Plattner, who, if you don't know that name yet, I recommend you following him. It's really refreshing to see this guy in action speak, one of the emerging earnest voices that's given me hope, to be honest. He said, he nailed it. Susan Collins is painfully aware that voter suppression is her only chance to stay in office. It's not just Susan Collins. It's the entire Republican Party. It's Trump's MAGA coalition. They know there's only one path to victory. They're seeing themselves getting crushed in these special elections. The writing is on the wall. And so their only path to maintaining power is to break our democracy. In other news, Donald Trump hosted the inaugural, sorry, I laugh when I even read the name of this, the inaugural meeting of his Board of Peace, a body he created to oversee the reconstruction of Gaza. 27 countries formally joined. The roster reads like an authoritarian roll call. We've got Orban from Hungary, Milei from Argentina, Lukashenko from Belarus, Bukele from El Salvador, Saudi Arabia is there, UAE is there, Azerbaijan is there. There's only 4 member states that are rated free by Freedom House. So let's hear from one of those dictators now.
Dear Mr. President, Excellencies, dear colleagues, first of all, let me express the appreciation of the Hungarian people to President Trump for his tireless peace efforts all around the world. Hungary is the only country to be represented here on the highest level among the founding members from the European Union. I represent a country.
Yeah, as Orban mentioned, none of the other European powers have joined the Board of Peace. So the UK, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, they all refused to join. Trump revoked Canada's invite after PM Carney criticized American hegemony. It's a loyalty test. This is a loyalty test disguised as diplomacy. Absurdly, Netanyahu joined, despite an ICC arrest warrant for war crimes in Gaza, the place this board supposedly is going to help rebuild. It's worth noting Trump has also invited Vladimir Putin, famed pro-democracy leader Vladimir Putin. Importantly and extraordinarily, there's not a single Palestinian on the Board of Peace. The board deciding Gaza's future has no Palestinian voice at the table. The board deciding Gaza's future has no Palestinian voice at the table. I want to say it one more time. The board deciding Gaza's future has no Palestinian voice at the table. The charter doesn't even mention Gaza. Fueling fears this is designed to rival the UN. Trump confirmed it today. The Board of Peace is going to almost be looking over the United Nations, is his quote. Permanent membership reportedly costs $1 billion. This is a pay-to-play international body chaired by Donald Trump. They've raised $7 billion. The UN estimates reconstruction will cost $70 billion. So Israel is blocking the Palestinian Technocrat Committee from even entering Gaza, and Trump dismissed ongoing Israel attacks as little flames. So to help me walk through this, I'm going to bring on my friend and incredible leader, Maria McFarland Sanchez Moreno. I want to hit all the notes on your name. Hey, Maria, it's so nice to have you here.
So great to see you, Xander. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah. I'm happy you're here. Maria, just for those who don't know, she's an attorney, award-winning author, an advocate with extensive global and domestic experience on authoritarianism, corruption, and human rights. That's an understatement. Maria has famously helped take down not one, but 2 strongmen in Peru's Fujimori and Colombia's Uribe. So she is the best in the world at talking over these subjects. I want to start with this question, Maria. You spent your career studying how autocrats build parallel institutions to consolidate power.
Yeah.
Trump says this board will look over the UN. I'm just wondering, what pattern are you seeing here?
I mean, I think you're right to talk about the parallel institution that he's trying to create here to wield power globally and evade the UN system, which is built on international law. It's built on, the post-war consensus that we had to move past, a lot of the violence and conflict of the past and build on a foundation of agreements around basic principles, around human rights, around the rule of law. And Trump clearly finds that threatening, clearly does not want to play by the existing historically shaped rules because he wants to define how things happen and he wants to endlessly accumulate power. That's just his way of behaving. So the fact that he's created this separate board to somehow rival the United Nations, which is absurd, isn't surprising. I will point out one other thing, though, that worries me. I don't see any information out there about how that board's funds will be managed. And Trump has already created a whole bunch of revenue sources that he controls, the Venezuelan oil, for example, around which there's no oversight. Congress has no oversight of that money. It's just money under Trump's control, and he gets to do whatever he wants with it. And I've seen that kind of slush fund before in the Fujimori government. They basically moved money out of the military and into a slush fund controlled by the intelligence service. And it was used for massive corruption to buy off politicians, to buy off judges, and do all sorts of things that were illegal. And so, again, I don't know what the rules are around this Board of Peace. But the fact that there is no clarity around finances, even though they're talking about huge sums of money, and everything revolves around Trump, that to me raises a lot of red flags.
I'm happy you mentioned the slush fund. I was thinking about this story. Represent Us, you all are focused on anti-corruption. That's your focus. And I was thinking about how this measures up to some of the other stuff we've seen. Whether it's him suing his own IRS for $10 billion, him creating his own cryptocurrency. Where does this new Board of Peace to rival the UN, where does that rank amongst the things you're seeing? And what are things maybe we aren't seeing? We do our best to cover the headlines here, but you're focused on anti-corruption. Yeah, where does this rank and what aren't we seeing?
I think it's hard to say what we're not seeing, right? But it's, I think Trump is all about creating leverage, tools that he can use to squeeze or buy off other people. And in this case, it may be other countries. The tariffs were a very useful tool for him to go, for example, to Vietnam and then say, oh, well, my kids need these deals for our hotels. We've got a tariff we're imposing on you, but hey, give us access to this land and maybe that'll go away. That seems to be what happened in Vietnam. That's definitely been a pattern in other countries as well. And what could he do with the Board of Peace money? Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. But he's basically buying himself a ton of power, leverage, just influence around the world that he can use either for extortion or bribery.
Right. One thing that, with Defiance, we were started to answer the question, what can I do? And so I want to start moving towards that question here. Corruption seems to be maybe the only thing bringing the right and left together these days. You've seen it with the Epstein files. That's shown up in force. You see the even as far right as Nick Fuentes criticizing Trump, the left obviously very critical as well. I wonder, how do we go from shared outrage to a political coalition that maybe isn't sharing, all their goals, but can work together to fight this authoritarian force? What's it going to take to go from everyone kind of upvoting the same posts to literally being organized towards the same goal around accountability and anti-corruption?
Yeah, I think we need to, talk about the issues in a way that's not as partisan as it has been. Very often you're hearing people go after Trump for, his appearance in the Epstein files, or if you're on the right, maybe you go after Clinton. And it feels very, it feels a lot like people are using it to score political points instead of actually dealing with the underlying problem, right? The Epstein files are one grotesque example of powerful people kind of helping each other out. Some of them are right wingers, some of them are left wingers, others are in between, whatever. But the point is, that is a way that power moves in this country
Mhm.
that to most Americans is completely alien and deeply disturbing. But it's also paralleled in the way money moves in politics, right?
Right.
Our campaign finance system is absolutely broken, right? Ever since the decision in Citizens United, we have all of this dark money flowing into elections, which means that the crypto industry, for example, gets to say to members of Congress, hey, if you don't do what we want with these
Sure.
bills, we're going to pour tons of money into somebody running against you in the upcoming election. And that's very intimidating, right? So just the fact that there is so much money sloshing around and that power compounds with that money. You can buy ever more influence, and that breaks the basic connection between our political institutions and ordinary people because they don't have that kind of influence. That should be of concern to everybody. And you don't hear most political figures talking about that, but it's clearly something that most Americans do find deeply troubling, do find to be something that excludes them. And it's why a lot of people are checked out and cynical about the system. The thing is, there are things that we can do, right? So far, we still have elections, despite what's happening with the SAVE Act,
Yeah.
right? We still have, as constituents, the ability to put pressure on our members of Congress. We still have the ability to speak, to go out on the streets and protests. We can use the
Right.
power.
This podcast exists. I imagine under Fujimura, some of these guys, it would not at this point.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was complicated, but I think we are losing some of our freedoms. We are definitely getting encroached upon. What's happened with Don Lemon and
Right.
the killings of protesters and people who were, Renee Good and Alex Pretty. But nonetheless, we as citizens still have a tremendous amount of power. And we can counteract the influence of money in our system. And we can put pressure on our elected officials. Susan Collins, notwithstanding, people can vote her out, but they can also tell her, because she does depend on swing voters, she does depend on people who may be Republican but don't like what's happening. They can tell her that, her seat hangs in the balance.
Right.
But that means getting interested in what's happening and using your agency as a citizen. And that's what we're doing at Represent Us. We have this thing called the Congressional Courage Campaign that's all about equipping ordinary Americans with the tools they need to effectively pressure their members of Congress, right? And that means not just our calls to action and making it easy for you to make a phone call. It's also helping to train people in key districts, facilitate them going and meeting with their member of Congress and figuring out, hey, what is it that my member of Congress is actually really able to influence right now because of the committee they're sitting on and the issues that they speak to. So that's a role that we're trying to play. There are lots of other ways, and you highlight them all the time on defiance.org, that people can speak up and show and stand up to what's happening.
You mentioned being able to use not the usual political language, right? I mean, Trump in some ways was successful as an anti-corruption candidate, and he was able to successfully speak to a lot of what people, in politics call low propensity voters who don't citizens who don't usually vote. It feels like your challenge, all of our challenge, but specifically the challenge you're taking on, is to maybe find those people again, or other low propensity folks, educate them and whatnot. You talked about not using the typical partisan language. What is the right way to approach that challenge, and how do you reach those people?
Yeah, I think reaching low propensity voters is incredibly hard because people who are really checked out of the system and who are maybe, very busy with other things in their lives, maybe they have a hard life. That's tough. I think we can mobilize people who are already somewhat engaged.
Yeah.
And we can help people who maybe supported Trump because they thought he was going to end corruption or be the candidate to fix to drain the swamp, and maybe they're disappointed. At least we can try to give them a hand and help them see that the problems that they're concerned about are only getting worse.
Right.
And I think that is not so much, okay, let's go activate all the low propensity voters, but it's at least reaching people with content, with information that they will find useful and that meets them where they're at, right? They're concerned about certain things. Let's talk about those things, not just like lecture from DC.
Now that you say that, which of these, when you think about the corruption that impacts people personally, where do you see that showing up the most? Like people talk about this Board of Peace is a great example, right? It's pay to play. You get $1 billion and your tariffs go up or down. Meaning if you don't pay, you have high tariffs. That directly impacts the cost of goods for everyday individuals. And so is that part of our challenge here, is just creating that through line of corruption is not just, because I think there's a feeling, let me back up for a second. There's a feeling that both sides are corrupt. The whole, like the whole, infrastructure around DC is corrupt, and really we might as well pick your guy because the other guys are just as bad. And it's a little bit vague. It's just like, okay, we're giving $20 billion to Argentina. Why? He's suing his RS for $10 billion. We don't really know how that shows up in our own lives. Is that your primary challenge, or represents primary challenge? Take that kind of abstract, headline and turn it into kind of a tangible need or frustration for individuals.
I think that people already know that corruption is bad. And they know that it affects them. They don't know exactly how, but they know that they are not on the inside, right? And that there are a lot of insiders who are benefiting. I think what you said earlier is exactly right, that a lot of people probably think everybody is corrupt. And therefore they might as well go with the guy who they think is more likely to do some things that help them. So there's just a ton of cynicism. So to me, the biggest challenge is not so much, okay, how do we make this show up in your daily life? It's more, how do we help you believe that a different way is possible, that we don't have to live with just a system where you assume everybody is corrupt. Well, by the way, I don't believe that everybody is corrupt. I think there are a lot of people with integrity in our political system and many other places. But I do think that both political parties have been part of a system that prioritizes the influence of money, and that it's gotten worse over time. And until you see political leaders being much more honest about that, and recognizing their own role in it, and then recognizing the responsibility that they have to show leadership, right? Don't take that PAC money.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard for people to believe it. But I think, again, we will keep pushing on the civic engagement side.
Right.
And I hope that we start seeing more politicians who have been speaking out about corruption, speak about it in a deeper way, not just as a partisan issue, but as a systemic issue.
You mentioned kind of the vicious cycle nature of this, that there's corruption, it empowers these people, they use that power to create more corruption, et cetera. We talked about campaign finance reform. We're seeing now how that vicious cycle works in the private sector, where we've got, I think Elon Musk is worth more than $600 billion now. And he was able to buy one of the largest social media companies in the world and change its algorithm favorably for his politics, which happened to be Trump's politics. The same thing with Larry Ellison. And I wonder, as I see the frustration for the Epstein class, as they're called now, I wonder if that's something we can get behind. It goes beyond just like the corruption in DC, but how this level of wealth, and I hesitate to say inequality because it's just like power consolidation, is incompatible with a functioning democracy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it compounds, right? As you were saying, and I think I mentioned before, once you have more access, you're going to use that access to gain more power, and then keep repeating that. It's a vicious cycle. I think you can scramble it, right? I think you can change the laws. I think you can change the way the political system works to ensure more accountability to the public, to ordinary people, and to limit the influence of these incredibly powerful and wealthy individuals. And, the question then is, if we did that, would you then see different policy decisions that affect them, right? Would Elon Musk then have to pay more in taxes, for example?
Right.
Would you see more regulation of AI, right? Because the stuff that does come out of our political system doesn't always match what most people seem to want. And so it's hypothetical. We don't know for sure what would happen if they didn't have the influence they have. And we can't prove, oh, this person gave this contribution and that's exactly why this rule came out the way it did. But again, the way it works right now, it's very clear they have a ton of influence, and that influence keeps growing and their wealth and power keep growing. So I think you need to find a way to disrupt that piece. Trump presented himself as a disruptor.
Right.
But what he disrupted was actually the functioning parts of our federal government.
We laugh so we don't cry. Yes. I mean, I am grateful in some ways, and then I know we're over time with you, but I'll let you go soon. But in some ways, I'm grateful because we've been dealing with a corruption issue in America for some time, but this made it so naked. It's like, it's so there for us to all see. And because of that, maybe we can have the energy around it that we probably should have had before it was so kind of in your face. But it gives me hope. You give me hope, Maria, that you and the effort you're leading can be successful in this moment. I'm so happy America has you on our team now because we need you, and we need your expertise as you navigate other countries, help navigate other countries out of these moments before. And so thank you so much for joining the show, and we're always here to support you and represent us.
Thank you so much for everything, Xander. It's so great to see you.
Nice to see you. See you soon. All right. Maria's amazing. I love Maria. It's hard to go from talking to Maria to a very challenging story, but I'm going to do my best. The Texas Tribune reported today that 6 people have died in ICE detention in Texas in just 6 weeks. One man's death was called a medical distress by ICE. The medical examiner ruled it a homicide. He was suffocated during physical restraint. And the Trump administration's response: spend $38 billion to build more of these facilities. Camp East Montano in El Paso is a massive tent facility on a military base. It is the country's largest ICE detention center. It's holding over 3,000 people. It was built in 2 months with a $1.2 billion contract to a small Virginia company with no listed experience running detention facilities. I want to bring up an image right now. One of those deaths was Geraldo Lunes Campos, a 55-year-old Cuban father of 4. He died of medical distress. This is that case I was talking about earlier. Medical examiner ruled it a homicide. There's been no criminal investigation in this death. When another detainee died 11 days later, ICE sent his body to a military hospital instead of the country medical examiner, the same examiner who ruled the previous death a homicide. So they were purposely avoiding that medical examiner. In 2025, 31 people died in ICE custody. Take this image down. An all-time record. 4 died in just the first 10 days of 2026. This issue is set to explode over the coming year. ICE plans to spend $38.3 billion, as I mentioned, building 8 mega centers holding 7,000 to 10,000 people each, 16 processing centers, 10 additional facilities, total capacity of 92,600 people. And Camp East Montana is the model for what they want to build. So for perspective, by the way, on that number, $38.3 billion, that is 4 times what the U.S. spent on new affordable housing in 2023. 4 times. We're in the midst of a massive housing crisis, and we're spending 4x the number on 30. We're spending 4x on ICE plans to build these mega centers. So to help us work through this issue, we're going to welcome one of my favorite people in the universe. Let me see if I can find her down here. Bianca Tylik. Hey, Bianca, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Xander?
Thanks for jumping on with us. I'm doing great. I want to read your bio real quick so people get to know who Bianca is before I dive in with the questions. Bianca is one of the nation's leading experts on the prison industry. She's the author of The Prison Industry, How It Works and Who Profits. She's the founder and executive director of Worth Rises, a national nonprofit dismantling the prison industry and ending the exploitation of those it touches. And I'll just add to that bio. Bianca is, if nothing else, hyper effective. She is a force of nature. If you've ever been in her orbit, you will find yourself quickly working for her, even if you didn't expect to. And she has made so much progress with this organization the short time I've known her. And so if you're not following Bianca or you don't know who she is, she's an incredible, incredible leader. We're happy to have her. We're lucky to have her doing the work she's doing. Bianca, I want to kind of back up a second out of this. This issue about the ICE detention centers. You wrote the book, The Prison Industry, How It Works and Who Profits. Let's just start there because a lot of people don't understand this issue. You've said private prisons are just the tip of the iceberg. For people just tuning into this, what's the full picture of how the incarceration industry works? Who are the players making money off of a detained human being?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Xander, for... Hello? You there?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. I was just saying thanks so much for having me. The prison industry. The prison industry is much, much bigger than private prisons. Often with private prisons, we're talking about companies that operate a prison or a jail. But even within public prisons and detention centers that are operated and managed by the government, there are plenty of things, in fact, most things that are outsourced to the industry. And so what we're talking about is everything from telecom to food service to healthcare, sort of you name it, even third-party hiring and training of staff, and all of that has been outsourced. And even when we talk about the industry, we also do mean all the public employees that are working in prisons and jails. Prisons and jails are now it used to be an $80 billion industry. Now they're saying it's over $100 billion that goes into the operations of prisons and jails and immigration detention centers.
On Core Civic's last earnings call, investors were reportedly, it's so sickening. We're disappointed. The detention numbers were only at 70,000 instead of the 100,000 they hoped for. What does it tell you when Wall Street is upset that there aren't enough people locked up?
Well, it tells me we've reached a new level of depravity in our capitalism, but obviously we know that has extended to really horrendous ways. You were just talking about the housing crisis. We're fine walking over people on the street who don't have homes or have mental health, issues or conditions. And it's just another iteration of the depravity of our capitalist sort of society and structure. But I think these earnings calls that you're talking about, they are so illuminating about how this industry operates, thinks, and sort of the gap it has in its ethics and morality, right? That was just their commentary in the last. And I want to say that you're saying 70,000 isn't enough. Importantly, 70,000 is already at unprecedented levels, right? For the last number of years, we've been, around 40, even 50,000. 70,000 is, a dramatic increase, over a 50% increase in the population of people who are in immigration detention. And they want it to be at 100, 150%, 200% of an increase. And so, it's gross. But these are also the same people that right before all the increases started were getting on earnings calls saying things like, this is the most exciting time in my 30-year career. I mean, just think about that. The level of also narcissism and individuality and selfishness to be like, this is an exciting time in my career. The moment that we have that many more people in cages, in mass cages, right? There's been these reports of women, sort of in diapers because they're not being able to care for themselves, in their hygiene and their health, and this is the most exciting time in your career. To be able to say something like that is remarkable. I mean, another chairman of the other company, Geo Group, said something to the effect of, this is, Geo Group was created for this moment in our nation's history. And then I really wonder, like, well, how do you define this moment in our
Right.
nation's history? You were waiting for you were waiting for fascism. You were waiting for the crisis. You were waiting for the caging of,
It's
like,
just a market opportunity. It's just, yeah. I was reading, if you saw me looking over, I was reading a member comment where she said, it's just CR Barnett said, it really is another industry these people can just make money off of. The
absolutely.
commodification of human beings. And now this, I'm happy you brought up how outrageous the 70,000 number is too, because in America, you can start kind of normalizing our normal our incarceration numbers, period, right? This is a country that's consistently has more than 2 million people locked up in any given moment. 70,000, I think, is like half of the incarceration population of Japan, a nation of 150 million people. And this is just the starting point of this effort. Like,
We're in year one,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And this is like before, I mean, in order to execute on the, like, immigration enforcement campaign that they want, they need an incredible arsenal of officers and, like, physical infrastructure, the detention camps and all of this, right? And those things aren't yet in place. We don't actually
Mhm.
have the officers that they need, but they're giving people bonuses, right, of $10,000 to join ICE or more in some cases. They are currently rapidly acquiring warehouses and other structures to outfit as detention centers. So, like, as that infrastructure is built, yeah, this number is going to rapidly increase because this number just hasn't, the infrastructure hasn't caught up with what their agenda is, right? And so I think it's like really understanding that and what we should be expecting over the next few years that should draw an incredible amount of ire and obviously, like, just pause for everyone. But I do want to just, like, say one note on that, these sort of warehouses that they're acquiring and that they're turning into detention centers. When I joined, I think I heard you mention that they had spent $1.2 billion sort of building a tent facility. I really want to put those numbers into perspective because what is happening here is also a massive, massive wealth grab and just stealing of taxpayer dollars, those in this industry. And here's why. Alabama set out to build 3 maximum security facilities for 6,000 people. 3 maximum security facilities for 6,000 people. And the price tag of that project was $1 billion. Help me understand how it takes $1.2 billion to build a tent for 5,000 people. That is robbery. That is absolutely robbing taxpayers of money. It is not what is required for that type of facility in any world. And I also want to draw people's attention to the idea that you do not take people who you label as dangerous and stick them in a tent and then think that those two things actually go hand in hand. If you are putting people in tents, then you are admitting that by no means are these people who are dangerous to our communities and society.
Right. Well, Bianca, one of the reasons I was so excited to have you on here is Defiance is built to answer one question: what can I do? You're someone who's been hyper effective at going right at this industry in particular. what can people do? We're seeing communities fight back. Kansas City banned new detention centers. There's governors pushing back. But talking to an expert here, what are the most effective things people can be doing? We can be pushing our leaders to do. What's our toolkit here?
Ooh, so many things, right? I mean, unfortunately, if we're honest, our leaders aren't doing a whole lot, no matter where you sit on any side of the sort of political apparatus. We are pretty stuck. And so I think a lot of what is required right now is courage from people to really exercise the power of democracy, right? To stand up and say, like, there are things that are not okay with us, and we need new leaders if our current leaders aren't going to be really voicing, yeah, exercising their voice for us. I congratulate the city of Minneapolis for, through its persistence and courage and demands, forcing the administration to pull back ICE. Now, is it going to happen the way that, it's sort of been announced? That's still to be seen. But even the gesture of saying they are leaving is pretty significant, and it's a huge win for an administration that rarely, right, pulls back or says that it will be, that it's wrong or whatever the case might be. So I think, one, I just want to inspire people to keep doing what is being done out in the streets. I think the second thing is, we're getting ready to launch some new campaigns and some new efforts to try to really hit them where it hurts. And, for us, that has always been focusing on the money. So we'll be launching a campaign in the near future that we're sort of soft launching and just mentoring, called Drop Vanguard, which is, an effort to get Vanguard, which is one of the largest retirement plan providers in the country, to stop investing in private prisons in particular, as sort of a signal to all of the other entities in this space to also exit. Vanguard is not just one of the largest retirement plan providers in the United States, but it is also the second largest owner of both Core Civic and Geo Group. And those assets sit largely in the retirement accounts of so many Americans. And so we will be kind of making a push to get institutions, nonprofits, entities, foundations, and others to make sure that their retirement for their employees aligns with their values and missions, and to drop Vanguard as both a retirement plan platform, but also Vanguard's mutual funds from their retirement offerings. And so there's things like that we are getting ready to do, and we invite folks to be a part. We are going to have toolkits ready for, if you're just a staff member somewhere and want to start running this up your chain or advocating within your organization, or you are the person who makes some of these decisions as either, an ED, a CEO, or a HR representative, operations person. We will have toolkits for all of you to do that stuff. So, for now, what I would say is follow us on all the different social media platforms at Worth Rises. Also sign up for our newsletter, worthrises.org. If you go to our website, you can sign up there. And yeah, I think just get involved in something is always my recommendation to everyone. And I think, I'll sort of end on this. I think this moment, and I love the name of, Defiance, right? Because it's at my own heart of antagonism, of defiance, of dismantling, and everything that I think is so important. But I think that something else that I've been talking about a lot right now is the idea of hope. I think it's so, every single day is difficult. I talk to people who felt the guilt of like being okay in this moment, and I'm always like, I'm grateful that you're not another person who needs help right now, right? So like that is good. Like, be good in this moment if you are good. So all of that, but it is true that it's so hard to watch the news, just scroll on social media and not see the devastation, the inhumanity, the depravity that we see. And what I tell people is like, we have to have hope. We have to have hope because our ancestors had hope that got us to a certain place. We have to have hope for those who are sitting in cages, who cannot literally do anything. We have a duty to them, to ourselves, that responsibility. And at the end of it, while hope is not itself a strategy, it is the foundation of all strategies, because if you do not believe you can win, you will lose. And so, like, that is the spirit and the energy that I feel like we all need to have right now. And with that, get to work.
What a great speech to kind of follow the legacy of Jesse Jackson's, who we just lost. Keep hope alive, keep hope alive, keep hope alive. I'm happy you gave us that reminder, Bianca. I want to leave on that speech, but almost all of our members are saying, Bianca, who else should we drop? Okay, Vanguard. Who else should we get rid of? They want to take action now. What other major companies might we all be holding that we don't know, have a massive impact on this industry that we should drop like a bad habit?
Absolutely. So the first thing I'd say on the Vanguard, please do follow us, because when we drop that campaign, which will be in the next few weeks or so, we do want everyone to get involved. So definitely follow us so you can take the initial actions when they're out there. With that said, yeah, absolutely, Vanguard's not the only bad actor. To be honest, Fidelity is pretty bad. BlackRock is terrible, right? Like, a lot of these folks are out there. I'm actually going to be doing a talk with another organization about sort of alternatives, and there are some alternatives out there that are out there, are helpful, right? What I would also say, if folks are just interested in finding out who else is involved and what else do I need to get out of, I would say a few resources. So one, at Worth Rises, we actually publish, that is completely publicly accessible, a database of corporations that are engaged in the prison industry and in immigration detention. If you go to worthrises.org, you can access our corporate database. There's over 4,000 corporations that are listed there that are engaged in some way in the prison industry. And because the prison industry is somewhat ubiquitous, it's quite hard to completely rid yourself. We don't even understand not just our retirement, our endowments, our taxpayer dollars, our benefit, everything is engrossed in the prison industry. And so while it's difficult to completely cleanse, yourself of all of that, taking steps is important. And so in the database, we also mark companies explicitly for divestment. So companies that have reached a particular level of engagement that we think at that point has reached indefensible levels and needs to be targeted and can only be targeted through divestment. We also license that data to a number of providers and asset managers. One in particular is called InvestNet. And InvestNet actually uses our data to create screens for people of the prison industry using our divestment targets and implementing them. And so InvestNet is, if you have a financial advisor, you can ask your financial advisor to access InvestNet's screens and screen your portfolio through that. So there are, those other opportunities if it's not something that you feel like you have direct control over.
Well, Bianca, I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you so much for jumping in with us. If you haven't read it yet, also her book, The Prison Industry, How It Works and Who Profits. It's awesome. It really sheds a lot of light on a space that many of us know nothing about. And so thank you for being here. Thanks for doing the work you're doing and being the leader you are. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Xander. Sending you so much love. Take care.
Thanks, see ya. All right, friends. We're making it through the show. We've got our last bit here. Who's joining the Defiance? One of our favorite sections. Let me bring up this headline right now because it's pretty exciting. On Ash Wednesday, one of the holiest days of the Christian holiday calendar, nearly 400 prominent Christian leaders released a joint statement calling the Trump administration cruel and oppressive and accusing it of being corrupted by a distorted version of Christianity. Their message to the faithful: commit to greater acts of courage to resist. This isn't a fringe group. The signers include the president of the National Council of Churches, the president of Fuller Seminary, bishops from the United Methodist Church and the AME Zion Church, the stated clerk of the Presbyterian Church USA, and the leaders of prominent congregations across the country. They made a point to specifically reference Matthew 25, Jesus' final test of his discipleship. How do you treat the hungry, the sick, the stranger, the imprisoned? If you're not familiar with the text of the Bible, the stranger is essentially the immigrant. And they explicitly rejected the right-wing argument that this only applies to fellow Christians, calling that an incorrect theological interpretation. The Christian right has always been a reliable base for Republicans. Let me remove this real quick. It's always been a reliable base for Republicans, and it is yet another sign that the Trump coalition that elected him in 2024 is falling apart. This group cannot stay together through all of these violations and disruptions the Trump administration is hitting us all with on a daily basis. It's almost, the muzzle velocity term is so true. It's hard to keep up with it, but I think muzzle velocity is almost working in reverse at this point for these guys. Each action they're taking is starting to chip away at their base in different directions, whether it's the murder of Alex Preddy and them going after the Second Amendment, whether it's the Christian right here saying, hey, our whole theology is rooted on treating the stranger well. What are we doing? Why are we being cruel and unusual? And so that's probably the thing giving me the most hope right now, is just seeing this coalition crumble. Some parts, I talked about this earlier in the week. Some parts of the coalition that's crumbling, they're never going to be part of our coalition, the resistance. It's nice to just see them step away from MAGA. I'm thinking about the Proud Boys and the white nationalists that maybe don't think he's being extreme enough, or the prison profiteers, or the oligarch tech executives. They're probably not going to be on Team Good Guys anytime soon. But it's nice to see them feel like this isn't working out the way they thought it would. There's other groups, though, I think, like these Christian leaders, that we should be welcoming into the coalition, that we can reorganize and build a new coalition on a moral center, on an ethical center, as Jesse Jackson would have wanted. Rest in peace. And he really took Jesse took Martin Luther King's torch and tried to create the Poor People's Campaign, the Poor People's Party, that brought left and right together on shared values and shared issues. And I feel like when I'm most hopeful in this moment, I feel like that is all of a sudden possible again in a way that it hasn't been for decades. And man, it would be beautiful if we could pull that off. And it'll take humility. It'll take patience. It'll take getting rid of the purity tests that we've been putting on different individuals, that they had to believe everything we believe to be able to get wins together. But we can get there. And I'm really excited in some ways for this moment. All right, that's it. We made it. Just me and all you. We got through it. So we'll see you tomorrow. We've got both our weekly coffee at 2 p.m. Eastern, and we've got the show at 5 p.m. Eastern. I'll leave you with Miles's outro.
And I'll actually be a part of it tomorrow.
For the outro. That's awesome. Miles, I was
actually be back with you tomorrow.
What's up, buddy? How'd Nicole Wallace go?
It was good. I thank you for your patience, guys. We had a couple of real serious important things to talk about on our friend Nicole Wallace on MS Now. So thank you for your grace, my brother, for letting me ditch you for.
It was kind of fun steering the ship. It was all right. Only a few minutes.
Dude, we can't let you steer the ship too much, or we're gonna end up, grounding the boat in the middle of a foggy night. With some bottle of Jack in your hand.
Well, now that you're here, Miles, since you're here for a couple minutes, you want to do some Q&A then, and then we can do your outro?
Let's do some Q&A. I didn't even know if you guys would still be on. And the second I got cleared to jump off, I was like, all right, I got to go get on Defiance Daily.
It was actually kind of funny, man. I think I got on out of nerves. I got on, and I was like through half the script at like 2:08. I was like, all right, I gotta slow down.
We've done all the news. Now what do we do?
we had Maria and Bianca Tylik on today, so it was awesome.
So great. I do have to say, friends, I hope you think it's as fun when the parents aren't home. When our producer Mercedes is not here.
It's really one parent. We're the children.
It's a little, well, that's what I mean. The parents are not home. It's a little more fun. It's a little more loose on the program. Mercedes is amazing. She's incredible. But sometimes, Xander and I have just got to let our hair down and say the things she won't let us say and fly through the script. But thanks for bearing with me on that, friends. And I
asked for questions, but everyone's just saying you did great, Xander. I think I'll take it. I'll take
all
love
compliments.
if that's what you guys want to do. We can
I'm sure you did say to the group, you let them know we have a couple of coming announcements about people who were added to State of the Swamp. Folks are probably mad at me that yesterday. I said we'd make those announcements this morning, but then we had even more people to announce we were going to join. So we said, let's try to bundle them all together and do it at the same time. And so hopefully that's tonight and maybe tomorrow morning that we get to announce to you some of the other figures that are going to be coming into Washington, D.C. For that. And if Xander didn't already say it, that's what we've been burning the midnight oil doing. That's why we gave our producer a break today, because we are all hands on deck. Let's see, if we're 3.5 people, how many hands is that? All 7 hands on deck, getting this thing ready for prime time. So we're really excited. Thank you for your grace this week on Defiance Daily as we get State of the Swamp flowing.
Miles, you appreciate my ability to change the Kion?
See, that was pretty cool.
Chiron.
We called it Kion, though. Yeah.
Well,
Chiron.
look, I'm not
But who
doing
cares?
this.
Who knows? That's such an
All
insider
right.
thing.
Well, so far all I've gotten is love in the chat. I don't know.
Xander's amazing.
I don't know if
Xander's
there's a
amazing.
question. You want to send us
Poop,
off,
not
Miles?
poop. Hey, wait. Well, no. One last thing, because look, we're on together. I'm going to give people a free preview. I have all of this merch sitting in my room because I wanted to make sure that people who come to the event can see it. This is the first time I've gotten my hands on this. Maybe I'm the only one who's this crazy excited, but like the State of the Swamp merch is like the coolest shirts you would buy at a music festival. And so yeah, they just showed up literally last night. My wife was like, "Why are there 10 boxes stacked up on the porch? They're all for you. What did you order?" And I was like, "I'm ordering Defiance swag, honey. I'm ordering Defiance swag."
I don't know if it's because I'm on like a run of all the shows I watch. I like rooted in the 80s and 90s too, like Stranger Things. That like that particular aesthetic is really appealing to me right now.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for people to see the set design and stage design for the event on Tuesday. It is campy, it is fun, it is different. It's not like anything you've ever seen. And our friends at Task Force, who we have worked with, these are the folks we partnered with on the ice whistles around the country. These were the geniuses who were like, we can surge ice whistles to frontline communities. They're the first ones Xander and I turned to say, help us make sure State of the Swamp hits hard and has this incredible look. And I think they stuck the landing. It's out there in the best way.
Yeah. I mean, it's been nice. It's been nice looking at the lineup and just the different perspectives we're bringing to the table and how fun. I think we do a good job of this even on this show, Miles, is that this is tough stuff we're talking about. But if you always bring a depressed or traumatic energy to it, you just can't sustain yourself. You just can't keep showing up for the fight. And so we've tried to make this fun. I think, and Miles, big credit to you. You've really been pushing hard on this thing. That State of the Swamp is going to be fun on top of being inspiring. We're going to lean towards what we can do, not woe is me. Look what these guys are doing. And so we're just going to keep trying to show up in service of that mission, helping you all know what you can do and which leaders to follow and how we're going to get out of this thing and what we're going to build next.
And a big thank you to those of you who have bought tickets for the event. No pressure to watch the live stream. If you can afford to buy a virtual ticket, we encourage you. We've almost paid off the cost of the event. It's an expensive thing to put on, but an important thing to put on because we need to send this message loudly, and we've got some of the best voices in the country counter-messaging the president. And thank you to everyone who's gotten paid ticket packages for the event. We really appreciate you. We are hard at work pushing those perks out the door to make sure we reward the folks who've helped make sure that we can put this event on and make it possible. So thank you, everyone. Very excited. All right, Xander, now I'll let us...
now you do it? All right.
Now that I've done all the hard work by showing up in the last 6 minutes and opining and then leaving. But as always, friends, stay loud, stay brave, and stay together. We'll see you tomorrow.